Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. Several Cincinnati public schools have established national reputations for excellence. Sands for innovative Montessori education, Walnut Hills for its outstanding college prep program, and SCPA for arts education. Over the years, the students at the School for the Creative and Performing Arts have dazzled us with innovative productions of the classics like Romeo and Juliet, and creative twists on more contemporary works, like their widely acclaimed production of The Wiz. Students and teachers have worked for years hard not just to inspire their audiences, but most importantly, to hone their own skills and develop their talents. All of this goes on inside a building whose cornerstone was laid by President William Howard Taft over 85 years ago. Today, SCPA is crumbling around the students with inadequate practice space that forces dancers to cut short their routines, and composers are forced into the hallways. People connected with the school have long talked about developing a facility worthy of the students at SCPA, and over the last year, that vision has been lifted up by one of the pillars of Cincinnati's cultural establishment, Maestro Erich Kunzel, the conductor of the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. Many community people have taken up Erich's vision for a greater Cincinnati Arts and Education Center, including Herb Brown, a vice president of Western Southern Life Insurance and the chair of the Finance Committee of the Arts and Education Center. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan. Great to be here.
Erich, the vision. What are we talking about? Are we just talking about another school building, or are we talking about something more than that?
No, we're talking about something that has never been tried before anywhere in the world, and that's taking the student and giving him an atmosphere with the professional. When I say atmosphere, he'll be in that same area where the professionals work, where they perform, and I'm talking about the symphony, the opera, the ballet, the artists, the craftsmen. But they'll also be taught by these people with master classes and also to visiting artists, visiting opera, visiting, for example, let's say Itzhak Perlman comes and does a concert with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. Well, as part of that contract, in his contract with the symphony, he has to give master classes to the string players of SCPA. Moreover, all those string players will be in the first two rows in music hall watching that rehearsal and the technique that he uses and everything else like that. That kind of education you can't find anywhere in the world. Moreover, we would start, now SCPA is from 4th grade to 12th grade. We're the only arts magnet school in the country that starts at 4th, and we're even entertaining the idea that the new facility would start at kindergarten. So the young Mozart at 1 or 2 years of age will already feel the peer pressure of the 5th grader and the 6th grader. So from the 1st grade, you know, they'll have something always to build it up to. So it's a brand new approach, and by having the opera company, the ballet company, the wonderful artists in the community and symphony, all part of this I call campus, we're bringing to Cincinnati worldwide recognition in the arts, and it's very, very exciting.
Herb, obviously this vision is very different than just a new building, but it also has to take some sort of physical shape. Where are you, the people working with this project, where are you in the process of figuring out those sorts of things? Where this building ought to be, what it ought to, or buildings, the campus concept, what it ought to consist of? Where are you in that process?
I think it might be appropriate to say that this vision extends beyond the students of Creative and Performing Arts School, but Cincinnati is a culturally rich community, a diverse community. And so this vision includes the adults and children who live in over the Rhine who are not part of Creative and Performing Arts School. It includes adults and students who are in other parts of the greater Cincinnati community. We propose a campus that everyone can benefit from. So we're looking at the music hall area of over the Rhine. And we're just now beginning to roll out to various shareholders in the community the idea, some rough ideas of where and how the building might, or the campus would fit in over the Rhine.
So you're still in the planning stages and input is still possible on this?
Absolutely.
Herb introduced an important concept here, that it's not just for children, it's not just for young people who happen to be in a school setting, that the vision is also adults. As an old high school teacher myself, I've often preached that I think we waste a lot of energy and money on people who aren't ready for education, that adults actually are the people who are best tuned in to take advantage of this. What sort of things could adults do in this center that you're talking about?
Well, actually, our mission statement says it's an arts and education center for students of all ages, I think is the way we termed it. But for example, let's take just the arts and crafts building, which would house sculpture, art, pottery, ceramics, jewelry making, bookbinding, photography, woodworking, you name it. Anything in the arts and crafts, I hope we can fit all into this building. There'll be obviously much studio space, and the students of SCPA would be obviously taking lessons from the teachers during the daytime and visiting artists. In the evening, so that the building is used 24 hours because there's an awful lot of equipment, the kilns, all the woodworking stuff and everything, so it's used also 24 hours a day in the various studios. It'll be open to the entire community for them to learn a trade, to learn a craft. Perhaps a person like me wants to build a boat. Well, I can go there in the evening and learn how to build a boat from the craftsman that is there. So it involves the community as part of this art center. And the course, the May Festival, amateur theater groups will be there. They'll in fact be a community theater as part of this complex. We hope there'll be for the summer use an amphitheater for the over the Rhine and the general area. They can do rock concerts, they can jazz concerts, they can assemblies, everything in beautiful Washington Park. So it's a real community and a place for people of all ages to learn, experience art.
Herb, you've worked through Western Southern's efforts a few years ago in Over the Rhine. You've worked in Over the Rhine before. It's sometimes difficult to figure out what to do and how to do it in Over the Rhine. The politics of the community can become very difficult. Is this doable? And when we talk about near Music Hall, Over the Rhine, is this going to be possible to do this without, and to ask the traditional question, displacing lots of people?
Well, Erich mentioned that we're going to do something that has not been done anywhere else in the world. And I think we're going to be able to do something in Over the Rhine that has not been done. And that is to get all segments of the Over the Rhine community working together. We see evidence of it coming together right now. We have a real diverse board that includes members of Over the Rhine. It includes the business community and includes the artistic community. And so we are building a vision that everyone can see and participate in.
Realistically, I know you're still in the planning stage. What kind of investment are we talking about?
Well, I'm going to let the leader speak to that first. You see, I get in the finance committee, I sort of get my direction from the leadership. And
I just want to point out, you have run for political office before. Erich, what kind of dollar value are we talking about here?
I really should even air this now here on this Sunday morning, and believe me, when I give a figure that is solely Erich Kunzel, that has nothing to do with my architectural team, that has done a superb job, and my man here, I would guesstimate at this juncture somewhere, and perhaps I'm being a little bit higher than it might be, but I just want to shoot because I don't want a Chevy. I want a Rolls Royce. And I would say somewhere between 200 and 250 million.
200
for
250
everything.
million.
That would be everything. And it's very sizable, this campus. I mean, there's a lot of structures. It's beyond just the school, as Herb mentioned.
I should just add that Erich, from the very beginning, when we first heard of this vision or this dream from Erich, it has been a huge dream. And so he has not stopped. Anytime we meet and share, Erich wants to get it done now, and he wants it to be the Rolls Royce that he talks about.
Well, realistically, we all know that SCPA, the building, the old Cutter, the old original Woodward, this is a building that has been on the top of every list of the study of the schools, that this one needs to be replaced, not just because of the condition of the building, but because of the quality of the program that goes on there, and it deserves a better building. Given that high priority for the schools, and given the fact that the state is about to invest in schools in a different way, what's your relationship to the school board, and what can we expect from that side? Because the $250 million is going to have, or $200 million, whatever it is, it's going to have to come from a variety of sources, obviously. What's the relationship to the school board?
Well, certainly the School for Creative and Performing Arts is a centerpiece of this effort, and we need the support and involvement of the Cincinnati Public Schools. And so we're working very closely with the school board. Lynn Marmer, the president of the school board, is very supportive and very much involved. Administration, Steve Ottoman, participates with our committee. The principal of the School for Creative and Performing Arts is very much involved. Leadership of the Friends is involved with the
So you feel like you've got that kind of support. Has there been a formal vote yet of any sort by the school board?
The school board voted to endorse the concept.
Okay.
Eric, I'm not exactly sure how long ago that was, but
Well, I would say a few months. In fact, all the major, even the political, the councilmen, the city council, the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, the entire Board of Education, unanimously, all of them, sent a resolution to us endorsing the project.
Let me flip that around for you. You mentioned the involvement of a lot of organizations, the symphony, individual performers, the opera, who would interact with students, and you know, you're asking something new of those organizations and those people too. Mm-hmm. What's been the response in the symphony, in the opera, in the ballet, the idea that they would now be asked to spend some more time with students? Is that something that energizes people, or is it something that is like, oh, one more thing we got to do?
No, actually, it's been 100% support, because as we go into the 21st century, I think arts organizations have to completely change their philosophy. I think, in fact, like, let's say the musician in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra has to become more, you know, it's no longer going to be, hey, I come to do the rehearsals, do the concerts, and I go home. I think the musician has to be more involved in the community as a leader, as a pillar of the arts community, has to be more involved in education and in outreach. Same with the opera ballet, same with artists, same with actors. I think there has to be more entire participation across the country for symphony orchestras to survive. And that one definite benefit of this can be involved with education. I think the Cincinnati Symphony should go more. How else can we get students even to want to play a violin? Let's take our string ensembles to schools and get them, you know, start them very young. So, hey, mommy, I want to go home. I want to play cello. We've got to have that type of interaction and have the players go to schools and start little programs and things like that. As we know, the Board of Education throughout the country, not just Cincinnati, they're all, what's the first to go when you have to start pulling back? The arts programs. What's next? Well, then finally sports, but arts programs are really in terrible shape. And unfortunately, Cincinnati was the first city in the United States to have music in its school system. Way back when. Right. Was one of the first to drop it, generally. So I think the arts community has to take the leadership and provide that void. And it's healthy for everybody. Healthy for the community, healthy for the symphony or the opera. And it's healthy for, obviously, the person learning.
So what we're talking about here is a vision, going back to the original question, a vision that not only transforms SCPA, but in effect transforms the relationship of the cultural, the performing arts organizations in town, and transforms their relationship to the community as well.
It's an arts cultural revolution, really.
And do you think we're at the forefront of that, or is this happening in bits and pieces in lots of places around the country?
It's not happening at all. We're at the forefront. I want Cincinnati to show the world how it can be done. This arts education complex will become world-renowned because There's none other like it, and it'll show the world, hey, this is the way to do it.
Another piece of that, as we talk about some of the components, we're also, as you are aware, talking with and considering and thinking about the Classic Music Hall of Fame, also being part of the campus. I know you'll be talking with them and I
Later
just
in the show.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, we got a lot of components here. We've got a school component. You have mentioned a building for arts and crafts. You've mentioned an outdoor amphitheater space. You've mentioned a performance hall, a new performance hall. Am I correct?
For the opera ballet and the school.
And what
combined.
size hall are we talking?
1,500, which would house the entire student population, but 1,500 is perfect for opera too.
Okay.
Perfect for ballet.
So we're talking about the sort of stage support, backstage support that will support an opera.
Oh, absolutely. It would be a proscenium, which by that I mean pit, stage. It would be a proscenium theater.
Okay.
Not a concert hall.
And possibly the Classical Music Hall of Fame. So we're talking about, this gets at this campus
Cincinnati
concept.
Film Institute, a big production studio. I mean, and galleries.
Yeah, let's remember that WGUC and WCET are right behind
there.
all
Memorial
of this.
Hall.
So that links all of that in.
involved, yeah.
We're just about out of time, but Herb, last question. Realistically, you ducked the dollar question. What about time frame? When could we even hope that, in a realistic way, that we might see this?
I don't know that we can answer that. Let me tell you, we're right now going around to various segments of the community and sharing with them just the idea, rough drawing of what it might look like. And certainly it will require the involvement of the community to help us determine when it might happen.
So we're still somewhat away.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us. We'll have you back as this thing matures. And good luck.
Thank you, Dan. Great.
Stay tuned. In addition to the Arts and Education Center, other people in the community have proposed that Cincinnati develop a Classical Music Hall of Fame. After the break, we will talk to the prime mover behind that effort. As the home of the nation's fifth oldest symphony, the oldest continuous choral festival, and one of the most renowned regional opera companies, some Cincinnatians think we would make the ideal home for an American Classical Music Hall of Fame. The leader of the effort to develop the American Classical Hall of Fame is David Klingshern. Mr. Klingshern has been a long-time civic activist involved in an array of cultural and civic organizations, and is now devoting himself full-time as the executive director of the Hall of Fame. David, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
First part of the show, the Hall of Fame was mentioned as a possible element in this complex of arts and education. But before we get on that whole question of where, let me ask an earlier question. Why Cincinnati?
Well, first of all, I'm very pleased to follow Erich, because Erich set me up nicely and Herb Brown set me up nicely, because I say to people, Cincinnati, Major League Baseball, Cincinnati, Major League Football, Cincinnati, Major League Music. We are Major League here. Traveling around the country, people think of us as a cultural center. They have more confidence in us than we have in ourselves. As you mentioned, the fifth oldest symphony, the second oldest opera company. Our College Conservatory of Music is internationally renowned. The choral groups, the ballet, all the other cultural institutions. In this city, our second largest economic tool are the arts. It's the Reds, the arts, and then the Bengals. So, and then go to the nice figure that Erich brought out. If we're spending X number of dollars for 2 stadiums, and all we want is 25% to build for the second largest economic development tool here. Now you say, why Cincinnati? We're large enough to have these institutions, but yet we're small enough that when you think of Cleveland today, what do you think of?
What do I think of? I think of the lake and the lakefront and the revival of the downtown.
And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of
Yeah.
Fame, right.
So Cincinnati, when people think of us, they'll think of classical music. And as I want to quote Mike Rozo, Mike said to me, David, Cincinnati has been looking for an identity for a long time. What better identity than the culture center of the United States? And
well, as a historian, in fact, in the 1870s, after the Civil War, when we realized we weren't going to be the largest city in the nation by the year 2000, which some fools were predicting in the 1850s, we shifted that and said we were going to start referring to ourselves as the Paris of America. We were going to be the cultural capital. So in a sense, you're picking up on a very old historic tradition.
The other evening, I was asked to speak at the Dupree Community House, and I went to them and I said, here, I'm Johnny Come Lately. I said, I'm able to celebrate what your grandparents and your parents and you have built here. This did not just happen. It took 100 years plus to happen. So now I can come along and say, hey, we're going to celebrate classical music.
We got a time constraint, so I want to make sure we move ahead here. You are going to sort of kick off in a very public way this whole effort with the issuance of some stamps.
Yes.
What's going to happen?
The post office is issuing 8 postage stamps. It's considered a blockbuster. There'll be 4 classical conductors, 4 classical composers. We petitioned the post office to have that kickoff here in Cincinnati. We are coinciding that with our national kickoff, announcing our National Artistic Directorate, which is composed of 20 outstanding people throughout the United States, from California to Massachusetts, Pulitzer Prize winners, composers, conductors, deans. We also have a Professional Artistic Advisory Council, which will be announced, and they are the presidents or executive directors of the 20 largest music organizations in the United States.
And that's all going to happen, those announcements are going to occur in conjunction with the issuance of these stamps?
Correct.
And they're going to come out on what day?
They're coming out Friday, September the 12th, 12:15, Fountain Square, and we're redoing the ceremony at the opening night of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra to kick that off.
And with Hall of Fames obviously induct people.
Correct.
When will you announce your first inductees?
We will announce this Friday, the 12th, that the creation of the Classical Music Hall of Fame has been founded and established in Cincinnati. The first induction ceremony will take place April 24th, 1998 in Cincinnati at the concert of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. It was very important that we come out and introduce who our national director is first, to add the credibility and the organization supporting this.
Now, to get down to some of the hard issues, what about space? Are you going to be up in this over-the-Rhine complex of arts and education?
Right now, thanks to Mrs. Hershey, Joni Hershey, I said to her, well, Joni, if you keep supporting the arts the way you are, they're going to call you Joan of the Arts. And I said, it rhymes with Joan of Arc. And I said, remember, they burned her at the cross, so we have to be very careful. But she's been so supportive. We have a 5-story building right now downtown in the Hershey building.
Right on 4th Street.
Right. I want to develop a program that is so good that people will say, we want you in this complex at Erich's building, or some other adjacent area. Right now, my main focus is to develop a very good product. Hopefully I can help Erich's project. Those people who are inducted into the Hall of Fame will teach at the School of Music. People will come here who are not inducted into the Hall of Fame, but they can become fellows of the Hall of Fame and teach from the School for the Creative and Performing Arts.
We're almost out of time, but I want to reinforce the point. You already have a facility that people can stop in.
Oh, certainly.
And want to tell
Yes.
again where that is?
It's the Hershey Building, 4 West 4th Street. We have gift shops for the symphony, which sells tickets there on Mondays and Fridays, opera, ballet, etc.
Okay, and some small exhibits already.
Correct.
So, thank you for joining us, and good luck, and we'll stay in touch on this one. We'll
Thank
look
you.
for the stamps this Friday.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. Join us again next Sunday. Remember, it's that magic time of the year, election season. What captures Greater Cincinnati's attention may be either serious or silly, or both at the same time, but they'll be on Newsmakers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay right there. They're going to roll credits here.